He goes by many names: the Man of Steel, Kal-El, the last son of Krypton, Clark Kent, but most simply call him Superman. As a character, Superman has represented a lot over the years. In his early days, he helped form the superhero comic book industry, acting as a beacon of hope, optimism, and escapism in a post-World War society. As time has passed, he has grown into so much more. The icon of heroism, the perfect champion. That phrase, a beacon of hope, you might hear a lot throughout this video, because I really think it's the most accurate way to describe him as a character. And so, as you would expect, people are protective of his image, of what they perceive him to be. And with the upcoming film, there have been a few debates across the internet on whether this adaptation will actually be good. A question of how accurate and how correct it is going to present this landmark of a character. And whilst it seems generally people are looking forward to his return and seem to enjoy the feel of a happy Superman film with bright colours and positive vibes, there is a minority who are extremely vocal about their issues with it and how it doesn't live up to one particular version of the character. Now, boy, that was a long opening. So brew yourself a cuppa or whatever it is you guys like to drink and join me for today's episode of Comics and Tea as we speak about why it might be good to lose some of the Snyder fanbase, as they so adamantly claim will happen after the new James Gunn Superman's film releases. I've broken this video into 3 segments, breaking down the issues with the arguments I've seen online against the upcoming film, those being the tone and feel of the film, the Superman suit, and one final subject I think is really important all around. But before I do that, I just want to say that I am in no way saying this film will be great or even good. It isn't out yet at the time of recording, and I have no idea how it will turn out. But when I see a flawed argument, I will call them out, and I can see plenty in this discourse. I also want to remind people that this is our month of madness, so expect a new video every 3 days, and be sure to subscribe to get notified when they go live. Also, if you want a chance of being mentioned in the 2K sub special, comment your ideas for heroes you'd love to see in the Marvel Rivals video game or in a DC Rivals alternate game, and how you think they should play, as I'll be breaking down different comment feedbacks since we do a lot of videos about that topic. Anyway, let's just get into the first point. James Gunn has made a variety of films over his career, but within the superhero genre, he has a certain style that is incredibly recognizable, one that put the Guardians of the Galaxy on the map and saved the Suicide Squad from an ironic IP death. This, however, has led many people to believing that he can only create comedies centered around misfits and convicts, but quite frankly, that just isn't true. I see a lot of people talk about having issues with Gunn's need to use comedy, but I think a lighthearted approach to a Superman film is a positive thing. That, and from what we can see from Superman 2025, it isn't really a comedy, not fully anyway, not to the extent his previous films have been, not like Guardians or Suicide Squad at least. But more importantly, when I see these complaints, it's held against the likes of Man of Steel, BVS, and Justice League, but those movies aren't good representations. You see, a major flaw in Snyder's Superman is the tone of his movies, and the emotions conveyed around him. A darker Superman story isn't a problem, but it becomes one when all we see is despair and desperation. Superman should be a shining beacon of hope, not a murmur washed out by a blackened world. Of course, it's not only okay, but great to actively show Superman's failings and his undoing. This can make for something wonderful, but Snyder's Superman never actually falters or fumbles, but then he also never rises up in the first place. In Man of Steel, Superman in all respects is successful in pretty much everything he attempts, yet somewhat infamously, the film's final moments entail him destroying a city at his own whim and choice, and then murdering a villain who's pretty much beaten at that point. A Superman who kills, albeit overplayed, can be an interesting take, but it isn't a defining characteristic. It's the twist of it being there that makes it so distinct. See, Superman wears bright colours and fights in in a modern Art Deco fusion city, where cars from the 60s drive beneath soaring skyscrapers of modern New York. He is a piece of fantasy in a world that exaggerates reality. He will stop a train to save a child, he'll get a cat out of a tree, and then he will punch a kaiju into outer space. The idea of grounding a hero in reality belittles the stories they tell and lessens their meaning. But if you want to add realism to your heroes, make them feel like they could rise in our world, that is perfectly acceptable. But that doesn't mean you need to kill aspects of them. You don't need to drown out their essence. Superman is hope. He is bright. A world with problems and a real struggle can look to the sky and see a man who is willing to rise above that simply to help. I don't think Snyder's take is all bad. Honestly, I remember the oil rig scene specifically being this real moment where I felt like Cavill became Superman. But for every small moment like that, there's BVS apartment scenes, or a Man of Steel city scene, or so on. These trailers show bright and vibrant imagery in Metropolis. They show Crypto and the Fortress, unashamed of their source material. Superman smiles and saves children. Crowds cheer. The film feels larger than life, and that at the end we will feel uplifted, inspired to do better, to be better. One of the dumbest things about superhero movies is how people won't shut up about the suits, all the way up to release. And it's the same story every time. The internet sees the suit, they hate the suit, the film comes out, they love the suit. Now there's some exceptions of course. Batman in Flash, Green Lantern in, well, Green Lantern, both ended up with the hate remaining after release. But that's not what I'm talking about here. No, instead, what I'm talking about are those who are comparing it to the Snyder costume. Okay, so up front real quick before I break down my points, I want to be honest with you. I really despise the Snyder Superman suit. It's the ugliest suit he's ever worn. Yeah, even the black version from the Snyder cut, although that one does improve it a little bit, but I just can't stand that suit. I just want to be upfront about that. Now to the actual points. I see people diss three things mainly. Firstly, the little details. Secondly, the fabric. And thirdly, the pants. So when it comes to the details, I understand frustrations. They aren't needed and they give it a certain late 2010s, early 2020s generic superhero suit vibe. Like something from the CW almost. But what I will say is that the suit, it needed something to define it as its own, and something simple like lining can go a long way with that. Also, isn't Superman meant to look a little generic? He's the OG, the inspiration for everyone else. So yeah, people are gonna have elements torn straight from him. The final thing is something I want to cover more in the pants section, but it's that Superman is also meant to match the marketing of its release. Something Snyder's version also did, by the way. And currently, that's the look he's rocking. In the cartoons and the comics, it's pretty consistent throughout. He kind of has these like lines and this more generic superhero suit vibe going on at the moment. As for the fabric, this is the bit I hate the most about Snyder's, but it's also the bit I understand and respect the most. Yeah, I know that's contradictory. You see, Snyder's Superman is meant to be wearing a Kryptonian suit. Contextually, within the film, Snyder wanted him to feel more alien than man, kind of missing the point of the character? But that's not the point I'm making when it comes to the suit. You see, he wanted the suit to feel strange and off-world, and so the texture and design of it comes into play there. The suit is all one piece, it's indestructible, and it's clearly alien in nature. Now when it comes to Gunn's Superman, it's not wrong or changing things, it's going back to its roots. Superman does not traditionally dress like Snyder's version. The gun suit is clearly made here on Earth and meant to be a link between this godlike being and something human. He looks like us, his clothes are like ours, he speaks like us. The only thing truly alien about him is that unlike humanity, he is more caring and loving than we could ever hope to be. This suit brings that across. It's bright, it's vibrant, it's human, and it stands as a visible symbol. I think my favorite thing is the cape. In every shot we see, the red on it is so bright. It stands out above everything else in the scene. And then we have the pants. So many of these people whinging about the suit online really hate the underoos. Well, that's just like how he looks. Also, Superman wears underoos too, get over yourselves. It's not only a design element to break up the parts and create a more visibly interesting build and structure for this character, but it's also fucking cool. Also, Snyder's Superman is only missing the pants because they just removed it from suits in the comics for the New 52. Well, we all saw how well that went now, didn't we? I do want to quickly jump in and just talk about the sigil on his chest. Now, I haven't seen too many people complain about it, but I think it warrants talking about either way. The Man of Steel S was genuinely a good design. It felt classic, but it's distinctively the Snyder S. And whilst I'm not a big fan of the new look for the logo, it is pretty iconic to the current look Superman seems to be headed in. It's modern and sharp, and I reckon we'll stop seeing the logo in this sort of design fairly soon outside of the movie. So it will also become kind of like an era-defining version of the logo, which in the world of comics can be really important. But with all of that aside, we have one last segment to cover. Here is why I think these people who want this dark, edgy Superman who is mopey and kills and lives in a dark, gritty world ripped straight from the 90s say that they are leaving the fan base, it's actually a good thing. You see, there's been a large push over the last decade or so to make superheroes darker. It hit Marvel and it hit DC. Luckily for Marvel, although they would go on to trip up in other places, they realized it wasn't A, good for storytelling, or B, what the fans actually wanted. The issue with how DC took it was they leaned too far into it, and from this darker hero world, we sort of entered a crisis. Many of us are well aware of the evil Superman problem, a plot point so many franchises currently use, and it's become boring and worn out. And often the main reason for it being so disliked is because it doesn't feel original or interesting. There's nothing special about a twist when the twist becomes the norm. Injustice, Invincible, The Boys, the DCU, Brightburn, Kill the Justice League. Hell, even Thunderbolts use this gimmick. But this issue is bigger than just Superman. The idea of the anti-hero, the gritty dark vigilante, has been lost. I just mentioned Thunderbolts, and don't worry, I won't spoil the film for you all, but it's meant to be a team of people who are on this cusp of villainy, these darker and more edgy heroes who act as anti-heroes. However, none of those characters are actually any darker or more evil than the normal Marvel heroes of the MCU, maybe apart from Spider-Man. The heroes in the MCU kill, they're violent, and they, for the most part, all have either tragic backstories or have done something morally horrendous. So the Thunderbolts kind of just feel like a normal MCU team, and all of this stems from the industry having no real symbol of heroism, no beacon of hope, no Superman. So I hope, at the very least, this film that is coming out shows us a real hero, a good heart, willing to do what is right. I thank you so much for listening to me ramble and rant, and if you have any thoughts on this, comment them below. I love to hear from you guys, whether you agree or disagree. I know the comics and T-series isn't quite as popular as maybe our Marvel Rivals videos, but I really enjoy making them, so I'm going to continue to rant whether you guys want to listen or not. And if you made it this far, please do subscribe. It helps the channel out so much, and I appreciate every single one of you guys. Thank you, and I'll see you guys in the next video.